Thank you for allowing me to come tonight. I'm just going to try to make this really fast because we don't have a lot of time. So I was a U.S. Marine for 8 years, received quite a bit of training when I was in the U.S. Marines. A lot of that training was police-type training because of the type of missions that Marines are doing today. They are being trained the same as police officers at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. In fact, Marines trains, this question always comes up, so I like to tell people, U.S. Marine trains a lot of state troopers, sheriff's deputies, and SWAT teams and things like that at Camp Lejeune. And some of you might be familiar with that. But so we receive a lot of the same type of training. But I was cross-trained as an EMT, a battlefield EMT also, because the unit I was with had to be completely self-sufficient on the battlefield. We did mostly forward observation for naval intelligence and for CIC on the aircraft carriers. So we had to be completely self-sufficient. I also took the EMT course after I ended my tenure with the Marine Corps. So I continued to do that for a little while longer. I have a 4-year degree in communications electronics. I did a 3-year stint with Jesse Helms' administration, and I worked with him dealing with the UN and other matters dealing with foreign entities that the United States was having trouble with. I was a Republican delegate for about 3 years also. I'm a Desert Storm veteran and a husband of 20 years with 3 children. I tell people that because I have a very stable life. And I think when you're in a leadership position, that's very, very important, that you have a stable life. And I always look at that. And when my last 2 years as a Marine, I had a platoon of 67 men. I ended up being mother, father, and counselor for all of these men. And I had to deal with a whole lot of things, including a lot of counseling with families and things like that. And it's always nice to have people to work with that have very stable lives. And when they don't, you need to know how to handle it. Sheriffs across America right now are going through a lot of difficulties, a lot of changes. And we have the federal government growing ever bigger every day. And the sheriffs are having to deal with that. A lot of them don't know how to deal with it now because they have no experience dealing with the new things that are coming down the line now. There's the environmental pushes. When we think about sustainable development, the DOE and other entities of government are entering counties around the United States, threatening to take land and doing other things. Well, the sheriff has the authority to deal with that situation. Of course, he needs to cooperate with the county commissioners and the court system also. But that's very important, and people are I get questions about that all the time as I walk around and talk to people in this community, because there are several ranchers and farmers in our community right now that are having to deal with that issue. And it's a very difficult issue. We also have the spread of Islam across America. We think, well, that's not a problem here. Well, it's going to become a problem. I'm not against them at all. But you have to understand them. And I've worked in 4 different Islamic cultures, and I know how to work with those people. And they're not bad if you know how to work with them. I'm not going to make a bunch of promises that other candidates will promise you the sun, moon, and the stars. You hear that every time there's an election. They promise you they can do all kinds of things. But there's no money. I've talked to the county commissioners, and a lot of the things that are being promised can't be done because there's no money to pay for it. And nothing is free. Nothing is free. It costs somebody somewhere. And by the way, grants create national debt. You need to keep that in mind. I'm not totally against them, but I'm not exactly for them either. They create national debt. So I'm not going to promise you anything but the truth. The reality is, folks, it's going to get worse before it gets better. And we better have the right kind of leadership in office. So I'll take some questions. Sir.
You know, a lot of candidates have talked about, and it's in the news, the money situation. Brian Ransom, the Sheriff's Department, a lot of their funding comes from grants that may or may not continue. And if they didn't, it has significant impact on the strength of the department, which would roll back on being able to serve the community. With the shortfalls in the budget and losing those grant positions, what do you feel you could bring to help address that problem? I know you speak about your dealing with personnel issues and in the military, but the management and dealing with those shortfalls and the financial crisis.
I don't really believe anyone has the perfect answer to that. I don't think you can, because if there's no money, there's no money. in 2 years, this county's going to face the biggest deficit in outside funds it's ever had. I talked to the county commissioners about that. So, for me to stand up here and say, oh, I can do this and I can do that, I'll be lying to you. And I don't think anybody can, because we don't have the answer. We're all going to go through some tough times. And when we're all going through tough times, everybody feels it. And one problem we have in our state governments and our federal governments, when that happens, they want to raise taxes or they want to do something else, but they don't help the little person. They don't help us. Everybody has to take the bite when that happens. So I don't really have the answer, and I don't think anybody else does until it happens. We just have to see how it goes. Another question, sir?
You got a valid driver's license?
Yes, sir. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
I would like to go back to what the other gentleman said about the response time. I have also suffered through that.
I have too.
And it seems to me that this end of the county always gets the back end of the cow. Everything happens from Chewela North. And what is your opinion on that?
It's a hard thing to deal with, because you have a county that's 50 by 100 almost miles wide and long. I'm a very practical person. You do what you can do. I don't necessarily have a problem with the sheriff's department on that issue necessarily, because I too have called the police before, just like Mike Brunson, and I didn't get any help. I can, amen him on that. I've been through the same thing, and I had a pretty serious issue.
So did I.
And it came down to almost to a firearms exchange. Unfortunately, Lord help us, it didn't happen. We got out of it. But that's a very real issue, and we got to understand we live in a big county. And I think the only way we're ever going to overcome something like that is if magically the budget increases overnight, which is not going to happen, or if people learn to deal with situations and learn to be patient with the sheriff's department. We're going to have to increase volunteerism. There's going to have to be some kind of volunteerism in this county. I'm not talking about the issue the other lady was asking about. I appreciate that question. But volunteerism is going to have to come up as budgets go down. As money goes down, people have to volunteer to help. We just got to do that. I mean, we can't have an army in the sheriff's department. There's not enough money. Ma'am.
They have a cops, there's something to do with cops down at 9 Mile Station, where there's volunteers down there. Is it feasible to designate satellite sheriff's offices in different areas of the county?
It's possible, but that's something we'll have to look at. You have to look at the whole scope of the situation and money. So, thank you.